At precisely 5:47 a.m., the blue glow of the security monitor was the only light in my dark kitchen. I stood frozen, gripping a half-filled coffee mug, watching the footage replay. There she was again. Brenda. Barefoot, clad in a faded pink velour tracksuit, the words Karma Queen ironically glittering across the back of her hoodie, creeping into my yard like a raccoon drawn to unsecured trash. She didn't hesitate. Straight to my small honey table near the side fence, the one where I occasionally left jars for neighbors who'd asked. She snatched the 2 freshly sealed jars I'd set out just last evening, tucked them under her arm, and tiptoed away with an air of bizarre entitlement, as if she were doing me a favor by gracing my property with her presence. Third morning in a row. My jaw locked. A tremor ran up my arm, spilling hot coffee onto the cool granite counter. My honey, harvested from my bees. The result of my early mornings, sweat, occasional stings, and burgeoning pride. And Brenda, my neighbor, just waltzed in daily like she owned the place, probably licking sticky fingers as she strutted back to her own immaculate lawn, never a word of thanks. It wasn't always like this. When I, Ethan, moved into this supposedly peaceful suburban community 3 years ago, I envisioned quiet mornings and friendly waves. I started a modest garden, installed rain barrels, and hesitantly began beekeeping, more a quiet fascination than a business venture. The hive thrived. That first season, feeling neighborly, I gave out free jars. Brenda had been polite then, in that overly bright, performative way that leaves you wondering if it's a compliment or a veiled insult about your life choices. I didn't mind her then. Not until the jars started vanishing. First one, then another. I initially blamed my own forgetfulness. Maybe I'd used more, given away too many samples. But then came the clues. The faint, sticky rings left behind on the tablecloth, the crate nudged slightly askew, sometimes a single jar missing, not 2. Occasionally, a hastily scribbled note in loopy script appeared. Thanks, neighbor. Or so much better than store stuff. Anonymous theft, cloaked in faux gratitude. The camera confirmed my suspicions. I tried confronting her gently the first time, showing her a printed screenshot of her crouched over the crate. Zero denial. She just scoffed, launching into a baffling tirade about community sharing and how natural resources, especially delicious ones conveniently located in my yard, should be accessible to everyone. Then, mid-rant, she abruptly turned to berate a delivery driver for parking fractionally too close to her precious mailbox. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. The next morning, she presented me with an HOA pamphlet, a line about neighborhood harmony and shared spaces aggressively highlighted, arguing that since my bees pollinated everyone's flowers, a dubious claim, given her own chemically treated lawn. The honey was essentially communal property. I almost choked on my coffee. But the real fuse was lit at her Thursday morning book club, gathering the HOA ladies, sipping iced lattes and nibbling lemon scones on her patio. I was trimming hedges nearby when I overheard her voice, deliberately loud. Oh, Ethan? The bee guy? Yeah, he thinks he's some kind of artisan weirdo. Honestly, probably just lonely, desperate for attention. Probably names each bee and sings them lullabies. The wave of sycophantic cackles that followed hit me harder than any sting. Suddenly, the honey theft wasn't just petty annoyance. It was a calculated dismissal, a violation. She wasn't just taking a condiment. She was stealing hours of meticulous hive maintenance, protection during storms, ensuring forage, clearing pests, nurturing the queen. It felt deeply personal. Intimate, even. This was war. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay staring at the ceiling, replaying her smug face, her glittering Karma Queen hoodie, the cackles. Fantasies flared, imagining her opening her door to find the entire hive waiting, a striped squadron of tiny Avengers. Then, practical anger took over. I paced, drank milk, and sat down at my laptop, researching bee relocation techniques. By dawn, fueled by caffeine and righteous indignation, I had a plan. A stupid, potentially disastrous, probably regret this later kind of plan. But I was too far gone to care. Just after sunset, when the hive hummed quietly, I donned my full beekeeping suit. With gentle smoke and sugar water, I coaxed the colony from its base into a portable nucleus box, disguised cleverly within a rustic wooden planter. Loading it onto a wheelbarrow felt clandestine, illicit. I trundled it across my lawn, down the side path, and right onto Brenda's pristine porch. I positioned it carefully near the railing where she performed her morning stretches, beside the small table holding her ubiquitous mason jar of cucumber water. For aesthetic flair and perhaps a touch of dark humor, I added sprigs of lavender and sprinkled pollen powder to help them orient. Beside the planter hive, I placed 2 fresh jars of my honey, adorned with a small label, Fresh Harvest. Enjoy. Stepping back, the setup looked disturbingly poetic. Back in my own house, the clock read 5:24 a.m. Fresh coffee brewed. I sat by the window, waiting. The air crackled with anticipation. 5:45 a.m. Right on schedule, Brenda's over-lubricated front door creaked open. Pink hoodie, sandals, yawning, stretching. She reached, blindly, for the honey jars. That's when the first scout bee buzzed past her ear. She froze. Another darted near her cheek. A third landed softly on her exposed ankle. What followed was pure, unadulterated chaos. A shriek ripped through the morning quiet. The honey jar smashed on the porch tiles. Brenda began flailing wildly, a windmill of panicked limbs. She kicked over her cucumber water table, tripped on her sandals, and flung herself backward through her front door, colliding with a decorative plant stand. Inside, Princess Lavender, her fluffy white dog, erupted into hysterical barking. I clutched my sides, coffee sloshing, laughter bubbling up uncontrollably. It felt like justice, served buzzing and slightly sticky. She wanted the sweet life? She got the hive. The morning after the porch hive incident was surreal. Brenda's porch became a de facto no-fly zone for anyone not encased in protective gear. The bees, surprisingly adaptable, settled in, exploring her flower boxes, humming around her wind chimes as if they'd lived there forever. Brenda, however, was not adapting. No yoga, no honey theft. Her curtains twitched violently, betraying frantic surveillance. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who claimed my bees threatened her garden now had her garden serving as their private, 5-star buffet. By noon, the HOA cavalry arrived, Greg and Linda, matching navy polos, self-important frowns. They'd received a formal complaint about a maliciously placed beehive. I innocently showed them my empty, clearly maintained hive base, my city permit. When asked if I'd move the hive, I shrugged. Bees work in mysterious ways. Maybe they liked her flowers better. Greg muttered something about swarm mentality. Linda narrowed her eyes, but had no recourse. The spectacle continued. A delivery driver approached, made it halfway up the steps, yelped as 3 bees intercepted him, and lobbed the package onto the welcome mat like a grenade before retreating. Brenda snatched it and slammed the door. Poetic justice tasted remarkably like wildflower honey. Things escalated when my nephew, Leo, came over. Hearing the story, his eyes lit up with mischievous glee. Before I could stop him, he'd edited the security footage of Brenda's porch meltdown complete with dramatic music and captions like entitled neighbor versus Bee Brigade and Steal Honey, Get the Hive, and uploaded it to TikTok. It exploded. 50,000 views overnight became 1 million by morning. Comments flooded in, demands for movie rights, offers to buy Karen's porch bees, honey, the name stuck online, despite my using Brenda, memes of Brenda mid-scream captioned, "You get what you bee for." I was half amused, half horrified. Brenda was not amused. That afternoon, she stomped across my lawn, red-faced, swatting imaginary bees, banging on my door so hard bolts shot under the couch. I opened it calmly, tea mug in hand. She screamed about targeted attacks, weaponized insects, her lawyer cousin who would ensure I never saw daylight again. I took a slow sip. I wasn't aware the bees adhered to HOA bylaws, Brenda. She stormed off, tripping over a sprinkler head. The laugh that escaped me afterward felt cathartic. Then the local news called, intrigued by the viral video. Bees and Justice, they called the segment. Hesitantly, I agreed, filming anonymously, shoulders down, in my bee suit, voicing over my love for beekeeping and the importance of respecting boundaries. The segment aired, pushing things further into the public eye. Honey orders surged. I hastily bottled extra jars, slapping on a simple Buzz of Justice label. They sold out instantly. Brenda's porch now sported HOA caution signs, a crude Sharpline cardboard, "Do not approach bees," and an anonymous sticker on her mailbox, "Honey Thief Sanctuary." Her reign of neighborhood entitlement was crumbling. The following week brought new drama. Brenda's sister, Diane, arrived like a storm cloud in an oversized SUV, parked across 2 driveways, and immediately began shouting orders on Brenda's porch, gesturing wildly at the bees in my house. I just waved. Diane, claiming paralegal expertise, later knocked on my door spewing nonsense about aggressive biological harassment and weaponized bugs. I asked if she was accusing bees of premeditated assault. It didn't land well. Her calls to city officials only confirmed my permits were valid. The neighborhood split. Team B brought me cookies and empty jars. Team Chaos, Brenda, Diane, a few HOA loyalists, muttered darkly. Greg and Linda made futile appeals for me to relocate the hive for neighborhood peace. I politely declined. When Linda handed me an HOA directive about unintentional disturbances, I offered her a sample jar labeled Neighborhood Peace. She took it and never returned. Then Brenda made her final, desperate gambit. Checking my security feed after hearing a noise near my shed one evening, I saw her. Swaddled in layers, mosquito net over her head, flashlight taped askew, trying to pry the lid off a backup hive with a garden hoe, muttering about reclaiming her mornings from insects. I filmed silently as she clumsily jostled the frames. The hive erupted. She shrieked, stumbled backward into basil pots, bolted, hit a fence post, and fled, leaving a shoe behind. The footage was damning, especially her scream about being allergic, a direct contradiction to her previous HOA statement. I called paramedics, liability first, then took the new footage straight to the police. This time, it wasn't a warning. Criminal trespassing, agricultural sabotage. Brenda was served a summons. The court appearance was swift. The video evidence was irrefutable. The judge ordered 40 hours of community service and restitution. The piece de resistance came 2 weeks later. Walking to the farmer's market, I saw Brenda, clad in a neon community service vest, miserably pulling weeds in the public garden, the very spot where I was scheduled, that same day, to give a talk to third graders about pollinators. There I stood, 10 feet away, extolling the virtues of bees, while Brenda crouched behind a rose bush, yanking dandelions, avoiding eye contact. The humiliation was palpable. After that, a strange quiet fell. Brenda retreated. The porch hive remained, now a permanent, accepted fixture with an educational plaque. Kindness, like honey, spreads when shared. Diane vanished. The HOA had new, bee-friendly leadership. My buzz of justice, honey, became a legitimate small business. One morning, a handwritten note appeared under my door. From Brenda. No excuses, just an admission of wrong, of ego-blinding judgment, of the horror of seeing her viral self. Enclosed was a check for the hive repairs and a line, "I hope the bees forgive me too." Later, a jar of dark, homemade honey appeared on my porch batch 1. No signature needed. A silent truce. Sometimes now, I see her sitting quietly near the porch hive, reading, the bees drifting calmly around her. Even Princess Lavender occasionally wanders over to nap near the buzzing enclosure. We exchange brief nods. The fence is just a fence again. The war was over. Revenge had, bizarrely, led to a kind of peace, a community oddly strengthened by stings and sweetness. The buzz of justice, I realized, wasn't in the attack, but in the quiet hum of things finding their unexpected, complex balance.